My name is Gideon Phils. I have been in finance for the better part of 15 to 20 years. I've been in it so long, I don't quite remember, but it's been a while. And I've done everything from middle market mergers and acquisition that's helping, you know, companies of $100 million valuation sell their company to companies who started with zero to now 100 million or more in valuation. And, my passion is to help businesses become stable, powerful businesses and contributors to the community. I want to start off this presentation of vivid vision mapping, explaining why it's important to have a vision, because if you don't have a vision, you're not unable to execute anything. This presentation is setting your vision to win. The way you set your vision to win is by coming up with concrete goals and trying to find ways to attain them and finding ways to find product market fit and making sure that the world knows about you and that individuals can find your products. What's the key elements of what goes into vision is what your idea of the future is, what your beliefs are, what your challenges are, what inspires you, or what you would like to inspire people to do, and your purpose. Why are you doing this? What's the reason? Is it a reason that you want to help kids um, look their best? Are you a person who wants to, change the community in some type of way? Do you want to help your community? Do you want to be able to provide a product need? Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, said that he wanted his work to be his play. Is that your vision? To make what you do at life your playground? Well, hopefully these key elements on how to create a vision will help you define that for yourself and help you achieve the goals that you're looking for. What goes into a vision statement? A vision statement must have your purpose, must have your values and your goals. What are you trying to achieve with your vision? Getting to vision involves road mapping, having a blueprint, if you will, to how you're going to get there and the steps that it's going to take to get there. We know we've heard the old adage that if you don't plan, you may plan to fail. So having a plan actually increases your chances of success by 30%. So does your roadmap need? You need to define the strategy and have your goals. Is it that your first year you want to make $1 million, or you want to make $500,000, or you want to make $300,000 to be able to live comfortably and invest back in the business? You want to be able to have a review and evaluate on how you're doing on a monthly basis in order to see, are you meeting your goals? Are you doing what it takes to get the clients that you need to achieve? Defining your requirements. To me, I think we miss, the forest for the trees by not defining our requirements. And that, I say, is if you have a barbershop and you want to expand your barbershop to another 2 or 3 stores, well, in order to do that, how many heads do you have to cut? Or how many heads do you and your staff have to service in order to be able to afford the next move or purchase the next place? So those are vital things that need to be understood. Sometimes as business owners, we just, put our heads down and work. But while that is absolutely necessary, it's also necessary to know how you can maximize the fruits of your labor. Having an organized timeline. A timeline is important because it sets benchmarks on when you will achieve your goals. Building your roadmap. Your roadmap should explain all of these things in order to give you concrete action items to get the work and what you need done. Your roadmap, well, should have a bold vision. It should be a substantial, something that changes your life, family life, and changes the marketplace. It should be a solid plan. It's great to say, hey, I want to be, a billionaire, but you also have to have a solid plan. What is it going to take? And what does $1 billion company look like? So setting, benchmarks and understanding the concrete way that you can make $1 million in a year. Nothing is impossible. It's possible for people to start at zero and go to a billion. We see it all the time. However, the difference is having the solid plan, having the solid team, and having the solid advisors around you that help you get there. And first start is everyone who's going to help you wants to know that you have a solid plan and that you have a strategic plan in place. So creating a strategic planning process is important. Communicating the plans. It's so vital that you communicate this to the people who are going to either be on your team, help you, and sometimes even to your customers. So they become your proselytizers and they invest in you by telling others, giving you referrals. It's a 70 to 90% close ratio if you get referrals. So treating your clients right, making sure they're happy, making sure they're referring you business is vital to staying in business and growing. And finally, tracking your process. The roadmap helps you track how you did. It gives you a benchmark to say, hey, I wanted to execute this, which means maybe 200,000 a year in revenue the first year. And how did I do? Did I contact as many people? Did I see as many clients as I said? Did I not make this happen because I didn't execute my plan? Or do I need to change the plan fundamentally because it was an unrealistic plan? In order to give you some insight, we're going to look at Issa Rae's vision mapping board and how she went from a simple vision plan, vision board to acquiring $10 million to create and produce Hollywood film.
Personal section and the miscellaneous section. On the work side, I knew I wanted to do something with HBO. Did that, baby. I knew I wanted to do global travel. Did that. TV writer. There's a couple things that I have not done yet. There's an app that I'm working on. You'll find out soon. I wanted to do Netflix or be on Netflix in some way. Shout out to Lovebirds with Kumail. I wanted to get my paper right. I wanted to go to Essence Music Festival. Did that. I think I had already done that, but did that 10 times over. Some of my best memories have been at Essence. I wanted to be on a cover of a magazine and had no idea that I was using the Cover Girl font here and ended up being a Cover Girl. Groupie's Guide to All-Star Weekend. More on that later. I want to do a film. I've been in a couple of films. I haven't written a film. Well, I've written a film. It hasn't been produced yet. Working on that. I wanted to be nominated for a Golden Globe or get one. I got nominated. Nina Simone. I wanted to play her at some point. Now,
so what we have there is, someone who is trying to get in a field who's really, really difficult. It's a very small percentage of people who make it in Hollywood. It's less than 0.01%. So the fact that she had a plan, she had a vision map, she created a vision board and said, hey, I want to work with HBO. She ended up working with HBO. She wanted to be on a cover of a magazine. She used the CoverGirl font and ended up on the cover of CoverGirl. She did almost everything she had set out to be. Why? Because she had a plan. Now, just having a plan is one thing, but it's so vital to have that plan to be able to put your energy and your time and effort to going out and getting it. And clearly, she went out and got it and made it happen. And so that's what's so vital about that. She went from being an unknown actor and to being a known commodity in the marketplace to where she actually is now a producer and actually was able to acquire a $10 million opportunity to produce films. So what does that say to you? It says to me that having that plan and being able to communicate it to others about what you want to do, what your goals are, and how you're going to get there makes it more likely for you to be successful. Now, one of the things I wanted to highlight is that it can be your own. If you look at Issa Rae's vision board, it was kind of all over the place. What mattered most was it made sense to her. If you look here, this is one of Tesla computers. I'm sorry, not Tesla computers, but Tesla Motors goal planning that they had in one of their documents. And if you look on to the other side, you see the dates that they have laid out on what they wanted to achieve and where they wanted to achieve it. Here's another roadmap that they may have had, understanding their brand, understanding their story, innovative ideas, purchase moment, happiness, because you have to lay out how you're going to attain the customers that you want. And that's really what they do. Once you get that bigger plan, you may need a smaller plan to say, how am I going to execute just getting people into my store, or just getting people to buy this house, or just getting to whatever your X variable is. Here's another one. This has to do with the production of where they want to go and how they want to see them achieve where they want to go. Now, that is essential to, getting where you want to go and being able to achieve where you want to go is having a plan, having a vision, and making sure you have the right vision. The last thing I want to share with you is how leadership and vision can affect other people and the people around you. Why having a clear communication is important. I'm going to talk about the Man Gulch situation in Montana, where firefighters, got trapped in a vicious fire and show you how they were able to either survive or not survive.
As a resident of central Portugal for the last 17 years, I've witnessed many forest fires, sometimes at much closer quarters than I'd have liked to. It is a heavily forested region, with summer temperatures often going over 40 degrees Celsius and no rainfall for months. Add to that, a certain small group of individuals with a proclivity for starting fires intentionally, and it means that forest fires are basically a fact of life in this part of the world. Indeed, just last week in our local area, we had to deal with several large fires which burnt for 5 days, consuming thousands of hectares of forest and which ended up coming to within just a few meters of my own house. Throughout all of this, members of the volunteer fire service work day and night to get these blazes under control. And every year, some firefighters are killed or injured while doing this work. All of this got me thinking about a book I read years ago which told the tragic tale of an elite group of firefighters called Smoke Jumpers and the disastrous fire of Man Gulch back in the summer of 1949. For those unfamiliar with the term, smoke jumpers perform a unique job in the world of firefighting. They are specially trained crews who parachute into remote wilderness areas to combat wildfires using only minimal equipment. Their role is like that of a first responder to a brush fire, getting quick, contain the fire in its early stages, ideally creating perimeter fire breaks to starve the fire of fuel. It goes without saying that this kind of work comes with its fair share of risks and attracts a certain type of individual. After all, parachuting from a low-flying plane with limited equipment into a remote wilderness area which is already burning is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. The concept of smoke jumping was first proposed back in the 1930s, but only became a reality shifted, blowing embers and burning dry grass onto the lower area of the North Slope. Spot fires broke out in the dry cheatgrass, quickly spreading as the winds gusted and eddied in the canyon bottom. As the heat intensified and the blaze grew, the fire began sucking in air, fueling itself, and moving up the steep slope, gaining speed as the flames rapidly ignited the dry grass above. Further up on the North Slope, the smoke jumpers were now in a perilous position. No longer were they moving down to fight the fire. The fire was now racing uphill towards them, a fire of such size and intensity that they had no hope of fighting it where they stood. Dodge could see from the billowing clouds of smoke below that the situation had changed, but the steep gulch afforded no direct view of what was happening, and so for a short while the crew continued down. As soon as the fire came into view, Dodge knew that they had to get out of the canyon. A 30-foot-high wall of flame was barreling up the canyon slope towards them. Dodge ordered his men to drop their tools and retreat, but some of the crew seemed unable or unwilling to follow his lead. After all, they needed their tools to fight the fire, didn't they? The men turned and began to run as fast as they could back up the steep slope, some still carrying their heavy tools and backpacks. Their only chance now was to make for the rocky ridge back above and to hope to find some shelter from the flames. Dodge looked back and knew that they wouldn't make it. The wall of fire was racing up towards them at an estimated 30 miles an hour, much faster than any of the men could run. He then did something so totally unexpected that his crew thought they'd lost his wits. Dodge took out his matches and began to set fire to the grass in front of him, causing a second fire to spring up. The men were now trapped between two fires, but Dodge called out for them to follow him as he moved into the newly burned area, following the path of the new fire as it burned up to the ridgeback. As this technique was something that Dodge had just improvised on the spot and not something taught in training, the crew didn't seem to understand what he was doing, and no one followed him. Somebody shouted out, "To hell with this, I'm out of here." And the crew broke and scattered, running with every ounce of energy they had left for the rocky ridge line above. It was every man for himself. As Dodge felt the inferno approaching behind him, he wet a handkerchief, placed it over his nose and mouth, and laid down in the middle of the burnt area of grass. Smoke and fire were soon all around him, and the winds gusting inside the fire were so strong that he was nearly lifted off the ground several times, but he held on, and the already burned grass offered him some protection from the fire which raged about him on all sides. After what must have seemed an eternity, but was in reality just a couple of minutes, the fire had passed by Dodge, the wall of flame continuing to race up the steep canyon sides.
So why did I share that story? The reason why I share that story is that Dodge was an innovator, but nobody understood his innovation. So number one, he probably should have told people prior of his actions. And secondly, the importance of a communication in emergencies is dire because you could lose your life. And starting a business is just as dire as obviously lives may not be lost. But however, what's important is that your livelihood, your family's livelihood is dependent on your success. So being able to communicate your vision and your goals to the marketplace, to the community, to your potential clients, and to your potential investors is tantamount to being a great leader. And so, as a great leader, you have to be able to communicate to your team and to the world how you're going to execute your vision. I hope that was helpful. You have a wonderful day.